Hello everyone, welcome back to Let's Learn and I'm Karthika, and if you are new to this channel, please subscribe to the channel and click the bell icon to get the latest notification. So before starting the video, a very happy Independence Day to all the viewers. So today's video is about free trade versus protectionism. Okay, so in this video, we'll be discussing what is protectionism, what is free trade and some of the trade barriers. Okay, so let's start the video. So first one is protectionism. What does protectionism mean? Protectionism refers to government policies that restrict international trade to help the domestic industries. Okay, so when a country government puts some trade policies or some restrictions on international trade to help the to protect the domestic industry, to help the domestic companies, then it is known as protectionism. Okay, so it is a government policy aimed at shielding a fragile economy from cheaper, better imports through imposition of high duty rates, quotas, etc. So here the government will be keeping some trade barriers such as tariffs, high duty rates, quotas, etc. so that other countries will be exporting their products to my country at a lesser rate, and by which I will be able to protect my domestic products. Okay, so such a policy is known as protectionism. So we can say protectionism is the practice of nations to protect their domestic industry. Okay, so now let's see the arguments in favor of protectionism. Okay, so why protectionism is necessary? First one is infant industry argument, which means that when a company or an industry is at a developing stage or at an initial stage, it needs some protection from other competitive companies who have already grown. Okay, so to protect our own industry, we'll be keeping some trade barriers. So that is first in case of protectionism. Second is diversification argument. In order to diversify our own industry and to develop our economy, sometimes protectionism is necessary. Then comes improving the terms of trade. In order to improve the terms of trade, first we need to develop our industries, our domestic industries. So for that also, for a limited period of time, protectionism is very much necessary. Then comes improving BOP. That is, when we are more emphasizing on the domestic product, it will help in the development of our balance of payment. So when our economy is in a very low state and we need to develop the balance of payment, we choose the protectionism policy. Okay, then comes anti-dumping. So anti-dumping is when other countries export their products to our country at a cheaper price than our domestic product. So what will happen? Then all the people will be preferring the foreign product in respect of the domestic product. So that is known as anti-dumping. So in order to restrict anti-dumping also, protectionism is a policy which is adopted by many nations. Okay. Then comes bargain. When a country already has some trade policies, they can bargain in terms of trade with other countries. Then comes employment argument. It means that if a nation who is already having some restrictions can focus more on the domestic industries and initiate more of employment opportunities. Okay, then comes key industry argument. Okay, in order to develop the domestic industry, there should be a need for development of a key industry, because the development of other industry will be based on the development and growth of the key industry. So for developing and protecting the key industry, also protectionism is a policy used. Then comes national defense. For saving our own country's economic state or for saving our own domestic industries, the countries will be opting for protectionism. Then comes size of home market. When already our home market is very small and we already have so many domestic countries, domestic products competing with each other, if some foreign products also comes into that competition, it will make the competition more hard for the domestic industries. So to protect the domestic industries, protectionism is implemented. Then comes equalization of cost of product. Then we can also say for like patriotism. For all these factors, we can use protectionism. Okay, so these are the arguments in favor of protectionism. Now let's see what are the arguments against protectionism. Why protectionism is not necessary, or why it shouldn't be implemented for a longer period of time, and why global trade should be implemented. Okay, so first one is protection against the interest of consumer as it increases price and reduces variety. Okay, so when a country implements protectionism, there will be the consumers of that country will only get the domestic products. Okay, so they don't get have a variety of products. They have to choose from the domestic products they have. Okay, so that will lessen the consumer variety. Consumer won't be able to choose between different products. Okay, second one is producers and sellers less quality conscious. When these domestic industries know that they don't have to compete with other foreign products, they will not focus much on the quality of the product. Okay, because when there is a competition with a foreign company, they will have to see that their product is of the best quality. Otherwise, people will be choosing the foreign product. But when there is no competition with the foreign company, and they know the domestic industries know that the consumers will have to choose their product, so they don't focus on the quality of the product, so that will also create a problem. Then it encourages domestic monopolies. So when we are protecting these domestic interests too much, they will not be competing with the other foreign companies, so it will encourage in domestic monopolies. Okay, then it is discourages innovation. As I told you, when they have to compete with other countries, they will have to innovate their product. They have to find out uh, new consumer perspectives. They have to focus on modifying their product. But when they don't have that competition and they know that only the domestic product is available for the consumers and the consumer will have to buy their product, they will not think of any innovation. Okay, so this discourages innovation. Then comes open to corruption. When there is no competition and they have their own monopoly, it means that it leads to corruption also. Then it reduces the volume of foreign trade. So when we are not allowing other countries to come and trade in our own country, it will obviously reduce the volume of foreign trade. So these are the major arguments that can be said against the protectionism policy. Okay, so we discussed what is protectionism. So protectionism is a government policy which restrict international trade in order to protect the domestic industries. And we also discussed some of the arguments in favor of protectionism and arguments in against the protectionism. Okay, so I hope it's clear to you all. So now let's move on and see what is a free trade. So free trade means unrestricted purchase and sale of goods and services between countries without the imposition of constraints such as tariff, quotas or other restrictions. So in a free trade, any countries can come and sell and participate in the trade in our country. There is a free trade, no restriction such as tariff or quotas or any other restriction. So free trade is a trade policy that does not restrict import or export. Okay, so now let's see the features of this free trade. First one is trade in goods without barriers. So one country can export or import goods to our country without any barriers. Then comes trade in service without barriers. So services are also freely traded. There is no restriction on exporting or importing services. Then absence of trade distorting policy. So in a free trade, the country will not have any restriction on import or export of goods and services, and there will be no distorting policies on trade. Okay, then comes unregulated access to the market. So there is no regulation on the entry or exit on the exit to the country's market. So it is unregulated access to the market. Then inability of the firm to distort market. There will be also be inability for the firms to distort the market. So these are some of the major features of free trade. Okay. So now let's see what are trade barriers. So as I told you, in protectionism, we will be implementing some policies by keeping trade barriers. So what are trade barriers? These are measures that government or public authorities introduce to make imported goods or service less competitive than locally produced goods and services. Okay, so by putting trade barriers, we are giving more importance to the locally produced goods and services or domesticated goods. Okay, so barriers are the form of tariff which impose a financial burden on imports, and non-tariff barriers to trade which uses other overt or convert means to restrict imports of occasionally and occasionally export. Okay, so we can see trade barriers are of two types. First one is tariff barriers and second one is non-tariff barrier. So tariff barrier is when we are importing a financial burden. We are putting a financial burden on the goods imported, and non-tariff barriers are other than financial burdens. Okay, so now let's study each one of the barriers. So first one is a tariff barrier or a tariff. So a tariff is a tax imposed by one country on the goods and services imported from another country. Okay, so when we are importing a goods or service from another country, suppose it costs rupees 10. Okay, but in the local market, it the same product which is produced domestically costs rupees 15, but the good from the another country only costs rupees 10. So what will the government do? Government will put a tax of rupees 5, for example, rupees 5. Then in the market in India also, the same product will cost rupees 15. So there will be no much difference in cost of the domestic product as well as the foreign product. So the domestic industry would not be much affected. So such a policy where a tax will be imposed by one country on the goods and services imported from another country, it is known as tariffs. Okay, so now let's see some of the types of tariffs. Tariff. Okay, so first one is specific duty. So in specific duty, it is based on the physical characteristics of the product or goods or service. Okay, so here it will be mainly based on a fixed sum. That is, we are specifying our weight. Okay, weight of the product. Based on the weight of the product, the tax will be imposed. So such a tax is known as specific duty. Then comes ad valorem duty. In ad valorem duty, it is in value of the product. The tax will be based on the value of the product and not the size or weight of the product. Okay, so such tax is known as ad valorem duty. Then comes compound duty or combined duty. So compound duty or combined duty is both specific and ad valorem. Okay, so the tax will be imposed on the weight as well as the value. Okay, comparing the weight and value of the product, the tax will be imposed. So such a tax is known as compound duty. Clear? Next comes sliding scale duty. So the import duty which vary with the price of commodities are called sliding scale duty. So here the duty tax will be varying with the price of the commodity. So according to the price of the commodity, the tax rate will vary. Okay, so such a tax is known as sliding scale duty. Then comes countervailing duty. So it is imposed on certain imports where products are subsidized by exporting government. So when the commodity is subsidized by the exporting government, here we will be adding a special tax on it so that they don't get that subsidy. Okay, suppose the product is of rupees 10 and they are subsidized and exported at rupees 5. Then the counter will be duty will be adding rupees plus 5 so that it becomes back to rupees 10. So such a case is known as a countervailing duty. Okay. So the next one is a revenue tariff. So what is a revenue tariff? A tariff which is designed to provide revenue to home government. So when we are importing this type of product to our own country, it will be providing revenue to the government. Okay, so when a product importing of a product gives revenue to the government, such a tax is known as revenue tariff. Clear? Then comes anti-dumping duty. So that I told you, when the cost of the product is rupees 10 of the foreign product, and at the domestic product it costs rupees 15. So people in if suppose we are taking the case of India. Okay, suppose in India the product costs rupees 15 and in another country it costs rupees 10. Okay, so people will be preferring to buy the product at rupees 10 only. So what the government will do? Government will impose a anti-dumping duty tax by which both the products, the foreign product and domestic product, will have like somewhat equal kind of rate. Okay, so that is a anti-dumping duty. It is mainly done to reduce the anti-dumping. Okay, then there is protective tariff. Okay, so in order to protect the domestic industries from stiff competition of imported goods, protective tariff is levied on imports. So when the tariff or duty or tax is imposed in order to protect the domestic industry, then it is known as protective tariff. Okay, so these are some of the main types of tariff. So tariff is a tax imposed by one country on the goods and services imported from another country. So first one is a specific duty where we put the tax based on the weight of the product. Ad valorem duty is the tax imposed on the value of the product. Compound duty is combining of both specific duty as well as ad valorem duty. Then comes sliding scale duty. Sliding scale duty is the tax that varies according to the price of the product. Then comes countervailing duty. So countervailing duty is when a product is having some subsidy while exporting. Then the country will be adding a tax on it, and such a tax is known as countervailing duty. Then comes revenue tariff. So revenue tariff is when we are importing that good, the tax will be given as a revenue to the government. Okay. Then comes anti-dumping duty. It is mainly used to reduce the anti-dumping. Then comes protective tariff. So when the duty or tax is imposed in order to protect the domestic industry, then it is known as protective tariff. Okay, so I hope it's clear here. If you have any doubt, you can please comment it down below. And humble reminder, if you have not subscribed to Let's Learn, please subscribe to Let's Learn to get more videos on comments. Okay, so now let's see what is a non-tariff barrier. We just saw that barriers are of two types, tariff barriers as well as non-tariff trade barriers. Trade barriers are of two types, tariff barriers as well as non-tariff barrier. So non-tariff barrier refers to any measure other than custom tariff that regulate import and export of a country. So I told you before that a tariff barrier, we are imposing a financial burden on the imported or exported good. But in non-tariff barrier, we are not having a financial, we are not giving them a financial burden, but other restrictions. Okay, so a non-tariff barrier can include excessive red tape or regulations, unfair rules or decision or anything else that is stopping you from competing efficiently. Okay, so these are some of the major types of non-tariff barriers. First one is a quota system. Okay, so quota system will be imposing a restriction on the quantity. Okay, on the quantity of the goods that can be imported or exported. So that is a quota system. So in case of product standard, we will be keeping a certain standard limitation on the product. So if a country is meeting that standards, then only they can import to our country, okay, or export to our country. So that is the product standard. Then comes domestic content requirement. So these are some of the requirements that are specified by the government to trade in our country. Then comes product labeling. So certain rules and restrictions will also be implied on the labeling of the product. If that requirements are met, then only they can export to our country. Okay, then comes packaging requirements. So that is specific requirements on the packaging, like it should be like eco-friendly packaging, no plastics, no plastic packaging will be allowed. So such packaging requirements will also be mentioned. Then comes consular formalities. So these are consular invoices which are required to trade in our country. Okay. Then comes straight trading. So these are some of the restrictions which are kept to while trading in a state. Okay. Then comes preferential arrangements. Then comes foreign exchange regulation, and there are other non-tariff barriers such as embargo or environmental regulation or safety regulation or technical regulation. Okay. So non-tariff barriers are mainly when we are not giving a financial burden, but we are keeping other restrictions such as policies, rules, or regulations. Okay, so some of the types are quota system. In quota system, we will be keeping a fixed limit on the number or the number of products that can be imported or exported. Then comes product standard. So here we will be keeping a standard for the products. Then there will be restrictions or specific requirement on product labeling. There will be specific requirement on packaging requirement. Then there will be domestic content requirements. Then we will be having some environmental regulation or technical regulation. So these are all implemented so that it would lessen or reduce the foreign trade. Okay, so these are the non-tariff barriers. So that's it. So I hope today's video is clear to you all. If you like the video, give it a big thumbs up and also share this channel to all commerce students you know. And once again, a very happy Independence Day to all of you. And please give your precious feedback under the comment section below. And also, you can suggest the topics you wish to watch. So, for more commerce video, keep watching Let's Learn. Thank you.